Okay. So
Ma'am, actually, I didn't attend the class.
in last class we have yesterday's class we have discussed about how we have to screen for industrially useful organisms by using various techniques, right? You can watch the video that I shared. So after we isolate our bacteria or our fungal strain of interest that may not produce your desired product in large quantities, or it may not be genetically stable, or for several reasons you need to improve your industrially useful microorganism, right? So here are several techniques why you need to do the strain improvement. Is that you have to optimize the microbial activity and you should optimize the environmental parameters. Means it may means you should standardize the pH at which it grows well, you should standardize the temperature at which it grows well. All that you have to optimize. Then you should optimize the nutritional requirements. So to optimize nutritional requirements, to optimize several environmental parameters, you should improve the strain. So this can be done by several means. Most fundamental approach is the recombinant DNA technology, you know very well. Suppose if particular your bacteria means like very much you can say, for example, it doesn't tolerate acidic pH. For example, let us understand, but your medium is acidic. So how do you do that? So make some alteration in its genome in such a way that it will withstand that acidic medium, so that it will grow. Such kind of alterations you have to do to the bacterium or the fungi for optimum production of your product of interest. So most suitable method is recombinant DNA technology, but still you can use several other techniques like site directed mutagenesis. You can, but suppose a particular gene is involved in making it more susceptible to acidic pH, so you can silence that gene. Or you can do the protoplast fusion, is nothing but you can fuse your bacterium or the fungi with other fungi or bacterium of suitable characters. So that is how you can produce a bacteria of your interest. So next method is you can do the metabolic engineering, is nothing but you can add some enzymes in a metabolic pathway, or you can delete some enzymes in a metabolic pathway, so that they help in improving the yield of your product. So ultimately, the strain improvement procedures you have to do to improve the yield of the product. As an industrialist, what is expected finally? Lot of products should be produced and it should yield lot of profits. That is the aim, right? So in different methods of strain development, mutation is the most commonly used method, wherein these mutations induce some changes either in the genotype or phenotypic characters of the organism. So these types of mutagenesis can be spontaneous or you can induce the mutations. So, in certain organisms, these mutations occur spontaneously without need of any chemical or physical mutation. So, such kind of mutagenesis is called as spontaneous mutation. Whereas induced mutation is that you induce means mutation will occur upon certain treatment with chemical or physical agents. That is called as induced mutation. So how do you do the induced mutation? So for induced mutation, you can use several physical mutagens like non-ionizing radiation or ionizing radiation. Either you can also use chemical mutagens, which can remove any bases, or which can replace, or which can modify your bases to get the desired characters. So various kinds of chemical mutagens that are widely used in strain improvement are alkylating agents, base analogs, and intercalating agents. So with regard to non-ionizing radiation, the long ultraviolet radiation. right? So these long ultraviolet radiation, they have very low penetrating power. So they will not be lethal to the organisms if they are exposed for a short period. So if they are exposed for a short period, they induce formation of primer dimers. So how do the many most of the times this question will be asked even in the entrance exams is that how ultraviolet radiation induces mutations in the genome. So the mechanism of introduction of mutations in the genome is side by side within the genome. If you have, let us say, thymine and thymine on a continuous stretch, let me write you on the screen, just a second. So suppose you will have your ATGC sequences. Why it is not working? Okay, so side on the genome, side by side, if you have like continuously one T and another T. So usually what happens, the uh, T that is present on on the coding strand will base pair with A that is present on the template strand. That is the natural phenomenon of base pairing, right? So this is how they form two hydrogen bonds here and two hydrogen bonds here. But what happens is these UV rays, when they fall on the DNA, they induce dimerization of thymine that are present side by side. So how UV radiation induces mutation is formation of thymine dimers and sometimes your cytosine dimers also. So mostly thymine dimers, sometimes cytosine dimers also. So finally you can understand they form pyrimidine dimers, not purine dimers, pyrimidine dimers. More high frequently thymine dimers, then cytosine dimers, or cytosine thymine dimers also are formed sometimes, right? So UV is non-ionizing radiation, but whereas you can also use ionizing radiation such as beta rays, gamma rays, and alpha rays, which have relatively high penetrating power. When compared to UV rays, these are relatively very harmful, but for a short period, uh, if they are introduced into the living system, they actually generate free radicals. These radicals mean reactive oxygen, free oxygen species with extra electrons. So these hydrogen oxygen species with extra electrons, they interact with your DNA. So that is how they induced mutations. So other methods of inducing mutations is by chemical agents. So most widely used chemical agents are methyl methane sulfonate or ethyl methane sulfonate. So what happens is they form like means almost I can say they replace. Suppose you have this is actually your thymine and adenine, like how they base pair and how much space they fit between your coding strand and coding strand as well as your template strand. So these alkylating agents, what happens is uh, they they get tagged to one of the one of the base pair, because actually what happens between guanine and cytosine, you will have three hydrogen bonds, right? So these the free oxygens hydrogens, they form hydrogen bonds. So if this oxygen is alkylated alkylated by any of the following alkylating agent, this will not be free to form the third hydrogen bond between G and C. So that is how there will be instability in the base pairing, results in mutation. So what happens here? Here, when there is no possibility of formation of third hydrogen bond, what this cytosine will think, this cytosine will not be able to form the hydrogen bond with G, because there is no third. Instead, it will form with T, because T or A, because only two formation of two hydrogen bonds is possible. So that is how actually it should be Cg, but it will be changed to Ca or Ct. So that is how the mutation will be induced. Genetic recombination, using recombinant DNA technology is the most useful. And because what happen, and you should also understand here is that using ionizing radiation and chemical agents, uh, you will not be able to do a targeted mutation. There will be random mutations. But using recombinant DNA methods, you can, it wherever you want to change the sequence, wherever you want any, you want to induce any sequence, you can do very successfully in both plants as well as animals. So you know recombinant DNA technology very well. Your so most widely how, why recombinant DNA technology is used to improve strain is that for production of recombinant proteins, and by using recombinant technology you can do modification of metabolic patterns. So as I mentioned, you can you can delete some enzymes in a metabolic pathway, you can add extra enzymes in the metabolic pathway, so that is called as metabolic engineering. You know, you remember glycolysis, it starts from glucose to pyruvate, there are several enzymes involved. So you can add some enzymes or delete some enzymes depending upon your requirement, right? So in in these strain improvement methods, ionizing, non-ionizing radiations and chemical induced mutations are random mutations, and you will not be able to control them, because when you are exposing them to UV and gamma, because they are having very short wavelength, and you will not be able to control the region, which region they are going to target, they result in random mutations. But using recombinant DNA technology, using restriction enzymes, you can targetedly remove some sequences from the bacteria or introduce some sequences in the bacteria for different purposes, right? And now what you have done, you have isolated useful bacterium from different environmental sources, and you have engineered the bacteria to improve the yield, to improve suppose if you are engineering the bacteria to produce your recombinant protein. So when you are using genetic engineering approaches, what you can do, you can induce several sequences. Normally what it will have, it will only have one copy of the gene. You can induce several copies of the gene within the host, so that so much of the yield will be produced. Otherwise you can stimulate the protein production by putting a strong promoter. So many manipulations you can do in the um, by using recombinant DNA technology. So after you have done all the strain improvement, you will be going for your production. But before you go for production, it is always important for you to preserve your microorganisms for future use, as well as because whatever culture you are working by, accidentally you may lose the culture because of some system failure. So you should always have them backup, right? So these industrial cultures have to be preserved and maintained for a long period in such a way so that they will not undergo any genetic, because if you're keeping on using for a long period, they will be undergoing different kinds of stress. In if you don't maintain your cultures properly, they will undergo a lot of stress like heat stress, salinity stress, and different acidic alkaline stress, etc. So they may undergo some genetic change. So to preserve their genetic change also, you should preserve the bacteria, and you should protect against contamination, definitely, because you will be using all nutrient rich medium to produce your product of interest. You should more chances of getting contamination. So by preserving, keeping the backup of pure cultures is always good for you to have a protection against contamination, as well as you, because you need, if you have to sell your cultures or if you have to distribute to somebody, you should have the viability, because if you are using the same culture for long period in the medium, they may lose the viability. Viability means living. So they should be living, they should have, they should retain all the genetic properties, because we, by using several mutations, by using several recombinant changes, you have produced this bacteria, and you should make sure that it retains the property of producing the good quality protein or good quality antibiotic, etc., right? And yeah, for these reasons you have to preserve the microorganisms for a long period. So based on different based on the requirement, there are certain methods where they can keep the microorganisms metabolically alive. So depending upon the requirement, we use this strategy. Sometimes there are some strategies required wherein microorganisms are having like very less metabolic rate, means like they'll be sleeping partner kind of thing. But here it is metabolically active. So for keeping your microorganisms metabolically active and readily available, we use a method called as periodic transfer to the fresh medium. So this is most simplest. Even in our lab we do this, because we prepare a petri plate, inoculate, but the nutrients that are present in the petri plate will be enough only for a week, for example. So what we have to do, take a new plate, inoculate in your new plate, and after 1 week, so what happens, again the bacteria will get fresh medium, again it will be viable. That is the most widely used method. And overlay of with mineral oil is also in tubes. If you are doing any cultures in the tubes, so the tubes will be laid over with the mineral oil, so that they will have less contamination. So sometimes storage in the sterile oil is also most widely used method. And saline suspension, using buffered saline to inoculate your cultures, are also most widely used methods. Well, but here what happens is your bacteria will be like live and actively dividing state, metabolically active. But at times, suppose you want to store them for long period for transport, you cannot handle the bacteria that is alive. Means here also they will be alive, but we don't prefer the metabolically active bacteria. So that time we have to go for bacteria that live under like submerged, very less metabolic state. The most commonly used method is drying in vacuum and lyophilization, usage of liquid nitrogen, and storage in the silica gel. So here the in periodic transfer method, merits are like variable variable periodic transfers to new media include frequency and the medium used and the holding temperature. So this can lead to increased mutation rates and production of waste, because continuously if you are transferring into the new medium, so because it will start to adjust to the new environments and different temperatures, and this may result in uh, production of genetic variants. Then mineral oil plants. So here the stock pulses are grown on a slant. Slant means in a test tube the medium will be poured, so and covered with the sterile mineral oil. The plant can be stored in the refrigerator temperature. Then minimal, medium or distilled water or water agar. So most widely used where washed cultures are stored under refrigeration, and these cultures can be viable for 3 to 5 months or longer. So freezing in growth medium. It is not actually reliable, because direct freezing actually results in the microbial structure, because the cell wall or cell membrane of the bacteria will go brittle, and they may not be viable for a long period. Drying. So cultures are dried on sterile soil like solid stalks as sterile filter paper discs in a or in gelatin drops, and they can be stored as desiccated or refrigerated at refrigerated temperatures or frozen to improve the viability. So, if like transport parcels, they will do most of the time drying on a filter paper. Then freeze drying. So here what happens is water is removed by sublimation. All the water will be made to evaporate in the presence of a cryoprotective agent like glycerol. So what happens? Uh, with the help of cryoprotective agent, the water will be removed and they will be sealed in an ampule. That results in long-term viability, even 30 years they can be stored. Then ultra freezing in liquid nitrogen at minus 196. So this you should remember. Liquid nitrogen you store at liquid nitrogen gives you the temperature of minus 196 bacteria, wherein the cultures of fastidious microorganisms will be preserved for more than 15 years. Right. So here you can see in this diagram the streak cultures and pure plates of pure cultures of microorganisms streaking. First you will streak, then you will subculture on, because after 1 week, after maximum 1 week, you can, depending upon the type of bacteria, you can keep even for a 1 month, and they will be kept in the refrigerator. And later on you will see, you will observe that the bacteria is not growing properly. So that time you take other fresh medium again you take up the colonies and you culture on the new medium. Again you can keep these for 1 month. Like that you can do the subculture process. And you can use several liquid mediums with the cryoprotective agents like glycerol and DMSO, and they will be they can be used, they can be preserved by cryopreservation. Again I use this glycerol based cryo, means you will be adding the liquid culture and like 25 to 30% of glycerol or DMSO. So this if they are stored under minus 70, minus 80, they will be viable for a very long period. So here this is lyophilization, where the liquid culture with the cryoprotective agent will be allowed to sublime. Means all the water will be evaporated, then it will form like a powdery kind of vials, and they will be sealed and they will be stored for long period. So after their storage, whenever there is a requirement, with the help of by adding fresh medium, you can revive the cultures and you plate them on a new plate and you will get your colonies. So this is how even in the industry they will do the same practice. So if they are if they want metabolically active cells, they keep the subculturing process or mineral oil. But if they have to store for a very long period and for transport and for sale, etc., so they usually keep them as lyophilized fire. So after so much difficulty, you would have isolated, and you have improved your bacteria for different purpose. So it is very important to maintain the stock culture, right? So this is what is today.